This is my book that I wrote. It was published in 2013. In the UFO and secret space program and MK Ultra fields, I'm known internationally. Not so much in my home area, so this is kind of a new thing to be speaking in more or less my home region. Okay, thank you. Okay, and so in the beginning of my book, I put a poem that I wrote, and it's called Medicine Story. Light the story fires, light the sacred sage and cedar, smell the sweet grass, be at peace. Join this circle with full hearts, come with open hearts, sit with clear hearts, listen with strong hearts. See me, I'm tying my ankle to a stake in the earth that I may make my stand with courage. I'm taking back my power from those who stole it long ago. Hear me. This is my medicine story for the healing of my spirit. This is stone medicine of memory and water medicine of hidden depths. Hear me. This is my prayer to Sky Father, to Earth Mother. This is what happened long ago. This is what has been forgotten and must now be remembered. This is what had been hidden and must now be revealed. Hear me. This is for all people everywhere. So, when I wrote this book and I wrote that poem, I had no idea how true those words are about this book is my stake in the earth, and I am forever tied to it. And it's a responsibility to write a book like this and stick with it. And stick with the truth that it tells. So basically, I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I was working at Tonopah Electronic Warfare Range and stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. And when I was up at Tonopah, some strange things happened to me. But I didn't remember them for 9 years. If somebody asked me about my Air Force experience, I just knew the most general of memories. I would tell people, well, I worked at Tonopah for about 3 months, and then I worked at Talitha Peak, and then I went here and worked in the orderly room, and a lot of data. Finally, a friend of mine thought this was really strange that I never gave any details about this experience. So he sat me down one afternoon, and he says, can you tell me about your military time? I said, sure, no problem. He says, well, tell me about it chronologically. And he knew something was afoot, basically. So I said, well, I was in boot camp at Lackland Air Force Base, and then I went to technical training school at Keesler Air Force Base, then went home on leave for a while, and then I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, and they put me up at Tonopah Electronic Warfare Range. And then I stopped talking, and I looked at him, and I said, I can't remember anything about working at Tonopah. And I worked there for 3 months. I can't remember a damn thing. Okay? And that set me on a real quest to find out what the hell happened to me out there. To regress a little bit further, before going in the Air Force, I had a very profound out-of-body experience. And I mention that because it really saved my life later on. I sat on the edge of my sofa and I said, I can, I will, I am. I can, I will, I am. Meaning I'm going to be out of the body. And suddenly there was like this sound here at the top of my head, and I was out of the body, and I was up in the corner of the room looking back at my body sitting on the sofa, and wow. And it wasn't anything like I would have imagined. If I'd imagined it, it would have been like a ghost me stepping out of my physical body and looking similar and kind of walking or floating around the room. Basically, in reality, I was like an orb. And if I wanted to look at something, there weren't eyes on this orb. What happened was like a million little tiny points of focus would gather on one surface of the orb and point a beam of vision, like looking back down at my body sitting on the sofa. And so it was a very, very profound experience, and the fact that it wasn't like I imagined actually validated it very powerfully for me. So I've been kind of a spiritual seeker from the cradle up, and that's probably another thing that saved my life. In this kind of, before getting this realization of missing time, I came close to suicide. You know, after I came out of the military, I was having severe heart palpitations. I was working in a male-dominated government contract field, and I was having all these heart palpitations, and it would be like an anxiety attack, and my heart would take off in a mad gallop, and it would feel like somebody was strangling me at the same time. And I didn't know what was going on, and the anxiety was getting worse and worse. And I was in the best relationship of my life at the time, and it really ruined the relationship because I couldn't get a grip on what was happening. He asked me to take Prozac. I took it for a while, but it made things worse, so I went off of it. And eventually we split up. And then I ran into this other friend who helped me find out that I didn't remember anything about working at Tonopah Electronic Warfare Range. And then I knew something was wrong, and that I didn't realize I had PTSD, but my body remembered the experiences even though my mind did not. And so that same year, I went around to different talks in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I lived. I ran into a guy named Bud Hopkins. Bud Hopkins, for those of you who know, he did a lot. He was kind of a groundbreaking hypnotist that worked with a lot of ET abductees. So I went to one of his talks at the Whole Life Expo in Las Vegas in 1994 and listened to his talk. And at the end, I raised my hand. I said, well, I have this strange experience from childhood. And then I have this other weird thing that happened. And then I got 3 months of missing time from when I was in the Air Force. And I have no idea what happened. And he said, talk to me afterwards. So that's what I did. Long story short, he did do hypnosis on me that night, and a chunk of this came out. And basically, I had been dragged out of my motel room in Tonopah, the town of Tonopah, at gunpoint. I was given fatigues to wear with no rank insignia and no name tags or any identifying marks, and put in like an SUV, like a Suburban, and we were taken out to the Nevada test site, or the radar range, I should say, which is part of the test site. And we were supposed to test our radar, our tracking radar, on special aircraft. And basically we were in the van, so we weren't looking at the sky, but whatever we were trying to track, it couldn't be tracked. It would literally, you could capture it on one part of the scope, and then suddenly, as soon as you tried to put a lock on it, it would just literally disappear off the scope. And then it would, if we were lucky, it would reappear another place. So after this test was over, went out and stood on the deck of the radar van, and the things that we had been trying to track were floating in the sky. And they were ET craft. There was no mistaking it. They were close enough to see them in great detail. And I was really scared. I was really scared at what I was seeing because I only had a secret security clearance. And I thought, what I'm seeing is classified way above top secret. And I was scared to death, scared for my life. Then we were put in a bus with painted over windows, and we were taken to a place that I think was Area 51. I'm not absolutely positive, but I'm pretty sure that's the only facility I can think of out there that would have the kind of amenities that I saw and experienced while I was there. I was told to, there was like 9 people in there, and all the people that were out there running radar with me, with each other, we were all forbidden not to speak to each other beyond what was necessary to run our radar tests. And it was to keep us isolated from each other and not talking to each other and not comparing notes. Anything that might spark memory later on. So one by one, they called us off out of this waiting room and took us off into this little side room. It was my turn to go in there. I was told to lay down on a stainless steel examining table. Equipment looked like it was maybe from the 40s or the 50s. So I laid down there. I was scared to death. I had no idea what was going to happen to me next. Then a guy in a white lab coat came in, walked past a security guard guarding me at the foot of the table and up around the right side of me. And he had a hypodermic needle hidden in the sleeve of his lab coat, came up with one smooth move and injected me in the side of the neck. And whatever the chemical was went straight to the brain. And suddenly 2 security guards are on either side of me, lifting me off the table and dragging me out this room, down this really long staircase, out a different exit from the room than the place I'd entered. And I don't really want to go into all the details, but I went through the effects of that injection in a little booth that had a one-way mirror, and I think I was being watched while I went through that. And then I was taken out of that room, and I was sexually assaulted by 2 security guards. This is what came out of the hypnosis with Bud Hopkins, and then some of the continuation of what I just said came out in a different session. And at first I thought this was the craziest thing I'd ever heard of, but it really rang true. It was in me. It really did happen. And then I found out there was lots of other people similarly that had this kind of thing happen to them too. And the reason is, well, I'll just say this. When the Roswell crash happened, 600 people were killed. They were erased to keep the Roswell secret. And it had an opposite effect, I think, on what they wanted. They wanted to keep it secret, but it actually raised more questions because people went missing, never to be seen or heard from again. So now they just try to wipe out your memory. And they have these techniques called MK Ultra. Have any of you guys heard of MK Ultra? Yeah, okay. So it's a mind control program that uses trauma to cause people to bury memory. So the trauma of the injection, the trauma of the sexual assault, well, 8 people watched, by the way. 8 people watched me being assaulted. And after a long time of thinking about it and wondering about it, I think that the 8 people that were watching were, I think they were being threatened. They were saying, if you ever talk about what you're working on out here, this is going to happen to your wives and your daughters. I think because they didn't look like they really wanted to be there or watch. So this was the trauma that I'd been experiencing for so long. This was the trauma that drove me to the edge of suicide at age 33 because I didn't realize I was experiencing intense PTSD. My body remembered the experiences, my mind did not. I came really close to committing suicide, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because I think when you commit suicide and you drop the body, you go to a pretty rough place. The mindset that you have when you are thinking about suicide or going to commit suicide, and you're successful in killing your body, this is what I've come to know spiritually, is you recreate it. You know, thought is instantly creative on the astral plane where the soul goes after the death of the body. And because you go out in that mindset, you instantly create the same situation that you were trying to escape in life. And you can get stuck there for a very, very long time. Fortunately, there's probably family members and other people in spirit that are trying to get you out, but it's getting you to drop your focus on your suicide and pay attention to the fact that they're there saying, hey, we want to get you out of here, you know? So I really don't believe suicide is the way out. And believe me, I've had years of suicidal depression without the suicidal impulse. It's really hard to be that depressed and want to escape really bad and knowing that suicide is not a way out for you. You know, because of, you know, what I know spiritually. I can't do a Vulcan mind meld with everybody and give you that experience, but for me, that's real, and it's why I will never take my own life. So anyway, so here I am. I have some memories back, and it's like, holy crap. So I read Kathy O'Brien's book on Transformation of America, and she was about a lady that went through mind control programs, and she was used as what they call a presidential model. And she was passed around to be used sexually by high up officials in government, senators and presidents and stuff like that. And I read her book, and, it just, somebody said, why are you reading that book? It's got to be a horrible experience for you. And I said, I have to know what these people are actually capable of. I have to know. And that helped me to know. And I did years and years of research. 14 years I spent researching how the heck can this happen in the United States of America, not in wartime, and how do people get away with it? Because obviously no one was punished for what was done to me. And so I learned a lot. Let's just say I learned a lot. I learned about the mind control programs, the MK Ultra. I learned about the trials. There was, I can't remember a lot of names offhand, but all the MK Ultra documents that the CIA had, the current director, I think it was Dulles, he ordered them all destroyed. And they destroyed all those MK Ultra documents because they were at risk of coming out in the public domain because of freedom of information. Then 20,000 pages escaped destruction, and they did get out. And then there were congressional hearings. And at the close of the congressional hearings, Senator Daniel Inouye of Hawaii said this. He said, there's a shadowy government with its own Navy, its own Air Force, its own fundraising mechanism, and its own idea of pursuing the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and indeed free from the law itself. And it's when we have that kind of secrecy in government, so much is hidden behind it that is not good for we the people. It's a danger and it's a risk to we the people. Mind control programs are a risk to we the people, and they're a real risk to our children. And a lot of you in this room are probably aware of just the kinds of things that are happening to children in this country and around the world that are just horrific. We have to stop this. We have to say no to this. We have to draw a line in the sand and say no more. No more of this. And recovering, an important part of my recovery from this has been speaking out. The day came after 14 years of research when I thought to myself, well, trying to be a life coach hasn't worked. I got my certifications, and trying to do this hasn't worked, and so on and so forth. This hasn't worked. And so I sat down, I fired my business coach, and I sat down and I said, okay, Spirit, what is my thing to do in this world? And before I even finished that sentence in my head, the answer was coming back, you need to tell your story. Oh, that one that I've been avoiding telling for 14 years? Yes, that one. And so then I had the next thought came soon after, was that by staying silent about everything I knew, I was indirectly allowing the same kind of abuse I went through to go on for other people. And I had met a lot of those people up to then. So once I had that thought, there was no going back. I went out public. I did lots of interviews, and people got so hung up on the drama of woman raped and injected in Black Ops Project, and it just was this intense drama stuff. And I just thought, that was a lot of years ago. I've come a long way from there. I think I better write my book and tell my story my own way, without all the drama and without all the hype. So I put the book out there. It's called This Is It. I wish I had more copies with me. I've only got about 10. The budget has been hit pretty hard recently with all the things going on. But this is it. It's available on Amazon. And it's called Facing the Shadow, Embracing the Light, A Journey of Spirit Retrieval and Awakening. It's divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is the experiences, both ET and military abduction trauma. Second part is healing, the journey to within. The third part is awakening, because there is an awakening that happens. In tribal cultures, lots of people induce trauma to create a shaman for their culture. And other ways that it happens is one of the members of a tribe will have a trauma that happens to him in nature or someplace, and it awakens him. It lights up his consciousness in a way, and then he comes back and he has gifts to give to the people, to his people. And that's kind of what has happened to me. Being a spiritual person to begin with, my consciousness awakened to the fact that our minds have been controlled, not just in MK Ultra programs, but our minds have been controlled through indoctrination and narratives and all kinds of things from basically the cradle to the grave, until we are basically swimming in a sea of indoctrination from birth to death. And it's like trying to get people to wake up to that and wake up to the things that we've accepted as just real our whole lives. It's like trying to get fish to question the water they're swimming in. But if humanity could awaken and we could unite our consciousness, we wouldn't need any leader figure to change the world. We could do it ourselves. Because the world we see around us is a matrix reality that's created by our collective unconscious. And once we wake up to that, take our power back as a unified conscious whole, we can change the game. And that is the one thing that the deep state fears more than anything else. And that's why they've done all the things they've done the past 3 years. That's why they've done so many things they've done decades before this with chemtrails and GMO foods and designer drugs and everything else like that. They want to make sure we never activate as a unified, aware consciousness, because then we take control of the game and we change it and we make it the way we want. And we can make a world based in love and not war and hate and division. So that's my awakening from my experience. And unfortunately, after I published the book, I went through something for years that I would call shadow targeting. Never able to pin down who was doing what to me, but I had lots of scary experiences, including people feeling like my truck was being messed with from a remote location and my life was in danger. I cut a book tour short and went home because I really felt like my life was in danger. My truck was doing strange things and I didn't know what was going on, so I just went home. But I had severe PTSD during that time, was living places where I couldn't get a good night's sleep, and for about 9 to 10 years, I was living just half alive. And like I said, extremely depressed, basically because I just couldn't even get a good night's sleep. And I called suicide hotlines a lot during that time because I was so depressed, but I would tell them, I'm not going to kill myself, I don't believe in that. But I'm really depressed, I'm really hurting, I'm really suffering here. And there was no real way out. And then I published the book, and some wonderful friends that I met through Facebook and all other places put together a GoFundMe that enabled me to get out of apartment living and into a home of my own. And that has been the most healing thing that I could have had, because now I have quiet to sleep at night, and I'm able to do a healthy routine that enhances my health. And I'm getting to be a force of nature again. And I just want to address a little bit about the sexual trauma. Some of the things that happened to me over and above what I just talked about were being put in situations where there was like an orgy going on. And don't even want to think about those memories. And don't even want to think about what my body did to survive. But memories came back in 2017 where this one guy who was my handler had blonde hair and really ice cold blue eyes, and he would rape me. And this is where, remember when I said a while back that I would have these anxiety attacks and it would feel like somebody was choking me at the same time? That's exactly what he was doing. He was raping me and strangling me or smothering me at the same time. So that's what I was re-experiencing when I was having those attacks. And I don't really know what kind of programming I've gotten. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Before having the memories come back, I was in therapy for sex addiction for about 3 or 4 years because, you know, I was acting out stuff that had been happening to me that I didn't remember. And once I got my memories back, it was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And then when 2017 came in and I got those memories of being strangled and raped at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know how to let a man near me and be intimate. It would have to be a man with the patience of 10 St. Francis's, and we'd have to take it really slow, and we'd have to build trust that I could really rely on, and then still we'd have work to do. So I really don't know if it's possible for me. I just don't want to ever engage that programming again, ever, ever. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I've got a lot of healing under my belt. I've got, you know, I'm out there, I'm strong. I'm a U.S. patriot. I'm a veteran, I'm a patriot. And I wrote my book as a patriot. It's not just a UFO book, it's the book of a patriot who believes in the ideals our country was founded on and wants to see a return to them. And I want honor and dignity restored to our country. And I will work to that goal. And with what's going on in the world today, I'll tell you right now, I know where my line in the sand is drawn and what I will not comply with. And if I pay for that with my life, so be it. So with that, I guess I'll just turn it over and say, anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. It's my job now.
Okay. So I've gone down these MK Ultra rabbit holes just through research. I certainly haven't looked at it. I've read Kathy O'Brien's book. I read Bryce Taylor's book, Things from Memories, all these things. And my question is, when we see these programs show up in culture, like, for example, the symbolism is all there in a lot of music videos. They all have the monarch tattoo. They all, like, it's everywhere. A lot of them have the lazy left eye. Like, it's pretty clear. And then you hear, like, I don't really tune into that, but I catch things. And, like, I hear Paris Hilton say, I've been obsessed with Marilyn Monroe since I was a kid. And, like, you hear all the things. And I wonder, do you think that they have no idea, these women, or, and it happens to men too, but differently, you know, they're out there, they're pushing the agenda, they're doing all the things. Do they still have no idea, or do you think that they've given in and they're actively working for the darkness?
Well, they may have an idea or they may not have an idea. But when they're programmed into it, I mean, what they do in MK Ultra is they will enact a trauma on a person because they know that person's mind holographically records everything that's happening during that trauma. And then they program a word, like if they want a message delivered from, like what Kathy O'Brien did, she'd go to somebody and they would have the code word and they'd say it to her and then she would give them the message.
Yeah.
So they may know, they may not know. But some of them are so entrapped in the web that I don't know that they think they can get out. You know, learned helplessness is conditioned into this. And, you know, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be alive. And I'm lucky that I have my own mind back. You know, I think basically with me, they just wanted me to forget the things I saw out on the Nevada test site. They wanted me to forget that I saw UFOs. And I think they considered me kind of dangerous because there was 2 security guards in the room with me when I was being sexually assaulted. And I was thinking in my head, if anybody drops their guard and I get a hold of one of those guns, everybody in this fucking room is going down. Everybody. You know, I don't care who they are. They're going down. And I think they got an inkling that I was like that. I think basically they just wanted me to cover up my memories of what had happened, the injections and the sexual assault and all the stuff. And basically I think these people are arrogant. I think they wanted to just do it and see if they could do it and get away with it. See if they could do it and wipe my memories out sufficiently that I would never remember. But the problem with that is we're not just these physical beings. We have an aura, and even if the physical memory engrams are erased through technology like in the movie Paycheck or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that's probably very, very close to how they physically erase memory. It's still in your aura, and it can still be retrieved. And sometimes it's really necessary to retrieve it for your own well-being and your own healing. And it's really an ugly journey, and you have to face a lot of ugly stuff. But I'm here to tell you it's worth it. And, I went through this, and my book has helped a lot of people. It's helped a lot of other people come forward and write their own books. And I've changed a lot of lives for the better. So I really think that when I came into this lifetime, this was my mission. This was my undertaking to go through this and raise awareness of it and bring it out in a way that was unique to me to do.
Thank you for your courage to speak about it. There's been a tiny piece of my subconscious, or not subconscious, my mind all the time that has held out that it's possible that this is a conspiracy theory, and I've just been reading crazy things for the last 10 years. So thank you for having the courage to speak the truth that this is real and this is happening.
Well, it's conspiracy fact. You're not crazy, and you're on to something. Okay? All righty. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes.
Niara, did you spend time in space?
Yes, I did. I meant to kind of mention that, but it's kind of out there. But because they have captured extraterrestrial craft and back engineered craft, I did spend time on a base on the moon, and that's where the orgies I was talking about took place. And I have this persistent memory of this one guy that said, I want to turn with her, but I'm not going to do it in front of you creeps. I don't need you assholes around here. So I'm going to take her to my room. He took me to his room. He said, what's happening there is freaking wrong. He said, I want you to just rest here. I can keep you here for an hour without getting into trouble. Just rest. I'm not going to bother you. And I sat curled up by the wall with my head down like this and had that rest. And it's just, these people do this stuff. They get arrogant. They think they can get away with anything. They think that they can mess with your mind and program it here and delete this here and everything else like that. And then they're like, oh crap, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because the human body is an organism that wants to heal. If there's something that's inhibiting the energy flow through your chakras in your body, it wants to heal. And if it's bumping up against those blocks, it's going to keep bumping it until something happens and you start to heal, you start to retrieve the memory you need to heal. The human body wants to heal. It really wants to heal. And that's why people remember. And the people that, there was a thing where they would say, well, you can't trust memories that come from hypnosis. We have False Memory Syndrome Foundation. You know that CIA people came up with that? People in the CIA with everything to hide. Oh, we can't trust people that have memories come back from hypnosis, even though once upon a time it was admissible in courts as evidence. We can't have that because these people they're being suggested this stuff, and then they fabricate this whole fantasy about all this abuse. Well, that's just not true. And if the CIA is behind it, that's a big red flag. Don't you agree? Yeah. Okay. So there we got it. Okay. Any other questions? And anyway, the space, I did. I was put on a craft. And that blonde security guard, he would say, see you when you get back, sweetheart. And I knew that meant more rape and strangulation and whatever. But when I was at the moon, it was a strange experience. I thought, okay, well, I'm off planet. And we get off the ship, and they would say, you walk directly to that building straight ahead, and do not look to the right or the left or up or down or anything else like that. You just walk straight to that building and do exactly as you're told. So I walked straight ahead towards the building but I couldn't help it. My eyes were still just going that way and that. My head didn't go, but my eyes were looking around. And I thought, are we under a dome or is there air to breathe here? You know, and I never really got a great answer to that question, but I did have a hypnosis session with a friend that does Dolores Cannon's method. And when I asked the question about if there was air on the moon, I got an image. And the image was of this gray-green algae growing in cracks and crevices on the moon, and it made oxygen. And it didn't grow where the sun hit the ground, but in the cracks and crevices where it could be in the shadow, it grew quite thickly, and it was making a thin atmosphere on the moon. So take that for what it's worth. There's not been much corroboration of that idea, but that's what I saw in my hypnosis session. So, you know, I think there could be some credence to it. There was a movie made about algae making oxygen on Mars. So anyway, yeah, so there was the craft, and we do travel around, and there's people that have been as far out as Ceres, a moon around Saturn, I believe. The secret space program, there's a thing that they do, and I think I may have been part of this too, but I haven't delved into the memories. I think I've had enough. I don't want to dig anymore. But there's a thing called 20 and back, where they take a person out of their lifetime and they take them to a place like the moon or Mars or someplace, and you live there and work there for 20 years, and you're basically a slave, even if you're, you know, a really highly intelligent technological person or whatever. You're still basically enslaved in the system, and you do what you're told, and then they take you back to Earth, and they use these med beds to regress you back to the age you were when you were taken out of your Earth life and plug you back into your Earth life. And I know it sounds really, really fantastic to a lot of you and like unbelievable, but there are many people coming forward now that are talking about this and that it's happened to them, and their stories are very compelling. And like I said, I think there's a good chance during that 3-month time period when I was in Nevada that I may have been in the process of being reinserted into my Earth life at that time, but I don't have any corroboration of it. And right now, with everything I deal with now, it's like I don't really want to dig any further. Once I go in the great beyond and I pass in a natural way, or the deep state takes me out, I'll get all the answers at that time. I'm happy to wait for that time. So, any other questions? Yes.
So, you mentioned something during your speech about the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that there's been a lot of influence on my generation, everybody as a whole, with social media, with the way that news is being broadcasted. And I'm just curious, this being something that you spend so much time passionately in, do you see solutions? Do you see a path out of it?
Well, we're seeing part of that now, and it's this very messy, very ugly process of all the ugly stuff that's been hidden in government for so long coming to the surface, where all of us can see it, at least all of us that are paying attention and want to know what the heck has been going on. But one thing we have to do, I always joked around and said if I was running for president, which I probably wouldn't survive, I'd probably be assassinated before I got there, but I would run on a platform of complete and total transparency in government. Because when the government hides things in secret, see, there was a project called Project Paperclip, where they brought Nazis over from Nazi Germany and put them to work in our government because they had all this scientific knowledge that our government wanted to benefit from. And these people, a lot of them began to subvert our government from within and create a try to create a fourth Reich. And they did it with secrecy, and they quote this thing, we can't go into this, we're throwing this out of court for reasons of national security. The National Security Act was formulated 3 or 4 short months after the Roswell UFO crash. And basically it created a curtain of secrecy in our government where they could run all these secret projects, whether it was back engineering alien technology or mind control programs or anything else like that. They ran all these programs in secret with little to no government or public oversight, and it had nothing to do with national security. It had to do with hiding these people that were doing atrocities and making them immune from any legal consequences. And so now what gives me hope is all their dirty secrets are coming out in the open. And this is a good thing. And it's really ugly and it's really unpalatable to watch. And I know a lot of it. I mean, I've known a lot of what's going on for decades. But now lots and lots of people are seeing it and they're waking up. And that's a really good thing. And I have hope in humanity that this great awakening that we're in is going to bring us to a new place eventually. So that's kind of how I feel about it right now. That's it. The first step in making a better world and getting rid of this ugliness is to have it revealed, because it can't live in the light of day. Once people see it, once they see that their children are at risk of some pretty horrible things, like being child trafficked and used for, sex and things like that. Once parents see this, they're going to be outraged. They're going to be absolutely outraged that their little child could be a victim of this. And they'll be absolutely outraged at the children that have been victimized by this. So revealing is the first step, and we're in the first step right now, and may it continue. And what we have to do is stand up and say no. Each one of us has to find our own personal line in the sand, this far and no further, and I will not step back anymore. Okay, so does that answer your question mostly, at least? Okay. Anybody else have any comment or question? Yes, please.
Who's the deep state?
The deep state?
Is it like military government, or there's like organization?
The deep state is pretty much comprised of deep secret military, but more than that, it's corporate. A lot of secret projects have moved out of the military into the corporate arena because the corporate arena is not susceptible to the Freedom of Information Act. And so the information, the things that they're doing can't be pried out the way they can in the government. So it's the global, I would say the global deep state is, it's made up of people like Klaus Schwab, who else? Bill Gates, many others, Soros, yeah, that's a good one. These people, they just want ultimate control. And they're really, really afraid of our consciousness getting free and wrecking their whole game. They want to reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. They think that's a manageable size of a human herd. Right now, we're at an unmanageable size, and consciousness, if we start realizing the power of our own consciousness, wielded together in a loving way, it's game over for them. And that scares the hell out of them. So they want to inject things in our body that have nanoparticles in. They want to basically, for lack of a better term, they want a Borg population that they completely control, that they control with 5G, that the metal particulates that they have put into our bodies are going to put us completely under their control. They want to make sure that consciousness never becomes a runaway train that threatens their whole power structure. So they're trying to create the ultimate form of control. And so the global deep state is not really military anymore as far as I'm concerned. It's corporations and very powerful old families on the planet that just feel like they're the self-appointed overlords of humanity, and they want to just keep control to the best of their ability. And they've been doing it for hundreds of years through indoctrination of all kinds. Not just mental and emotional indoctrination, but physical indoctrination, like the Salem witch trials, the Spanish Inquisition, where people that had special gifts or were herbalists or something like that, they threatened the power of the church, so they got burned at the stake. There's You know, that's a simple explanation. I could go into more detail, but you know, there's just so much that's been done down through the ages. So we actually carry a genetic memory of indoctrination. And what we need in the 60s, there was a phrase that said, you know, question authority. It was on bumper stickers and everything. Well, today, that one would be question reality. Question the reality around you every single day. Is it real or is it manufactured by something you've been told over and over and over and over again? Okay, does that help? Okay, it's really not just military anymore. It's government. It's that those few people that feel like they should be in control of humanity at any and all cost. Not to them, but to us. Okay, so yes, go ahead.
Do you think with all these UAP sightings over the last few years with like Brian Graves and David Faber, do you think these are aircrafts or spaceships, whatever you want to call them, from created by some government entity, or are these actual other aliens visiting Earth?
Well, I think that there are visitors from other planets, but the thing that worries me is these old families that I was just talking about. They're very old. They go back thousands of years, and they have origins in other off-planet races, and they basically have the technology to make anything look real. And so the back-engineered craft could be used to simulate or fake an alien invasion, complete with lasers and directed energy weapons and everything. And they would put on a really good show, and the mainstream media will say, "Oh, we're under alien attack. We're under alien attack." You know, and people will panic because they don't know how to react to that. But that particular scenario has been put out, at least in the UFO community, and it's leaked far outside the UFO community by now, that an alien invasion could be faked, and they have the technology to do it, and don't buy into it, you know, because it's a bunch of crap. Okay, it's human beings up there flying those craft, and they've been ordered to use directed energy weapons to destroy here and here and here. You know, like, look at what's just happened in Canada, you know, with all these fires starting simultaneously in different areas. That's crazy. You know, how does that happen? You know, it happens through technology that they're using that the general public isn't aware of yet. And so, again, we got to question reality. We have to really question, because if we don't question our reality and we don't look critically at what's going on around us, then we're like the fish swimming in an indoctrinated sea and too afraid to question the water we're swimming in. We have to question everything, question reality. Okay, does that help? Okay, all right. And there was someone over here with a hand up. Yes.
Yeah, well, I was just, you brought up corporations, and there's a lot of crazy things been happening with especially American corporations having marketing campaigns that cause them to lose massive amounts of money, and I'm wondering what you think about like the heads of these corporations being blackmailed with potential, sexual stuff into crashing their own companies.
Yeah, what I did hear recently in one of my Telegram channels that I follow is that a lot of these corporations that are crashing their companies with woke policies and so on and so forth, they receive subsidies from people that control them. And so the people that are controlling them are saying, you will institute these woke policies, and you will do this, and you will have this trans person pushing Bud Light and everything else like that. And it may crash your company, but you have to do this because this is the narrative that we want to push right now. And we don't care if it crashes your company. We want to push the narrative. We have to push the narrative. We have to keep gaslighting the people of this world and the American public. And gaslighting is what it is. Okay, anybody else? Questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Gil. The thing about how do you choose the shaman in the Amazonia?
they take the kids, and then if the kids wants to belong, be a shaman in their life, what they do to them, they give them a cup of coffee full of tobacco juice. Okay, so what happened is when they drink this, they die, and then they have a reunion with the spirits. If they come back, they become shaman. That's the answer.
Well, okay, any more questions or comments from anybody? Well, if not, thank you very much for your time and your attention. And